Oliver and Liam stepped off the plane into a new world. They had traveled thousands of miles to study abroad in a foreign country, eager to experience new cultures and broaden their horizons. As they made their way through the bustling airport, they couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nerves. They stepped out into the bright sun and were met with a wall of heat. The humidity was oppressive, making their clothes stick to their skin. The air was thick with the scent of exotic spices and unfamiliar vegetation. Looking around, they saw people of all ages and ethnicities bustling about, speaking a language they couldn't understand. For a moment, they felt overwhelmed, unsure of how to navigate this new environment. But they quickly composed themselves, determined to embrace the adventure. They hailed a taxi and made their way to their new home for the next several months, a small apartment in the heart of the city. As they settled in, they began to explore their surroundings. They wandered the bustling streets, marveling at the colorful storefronts and ornate architecture. They sampled new foods, eager to try everything from the spicy street food to the delicate pastries. But even as they reveled in their new surroundings, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There were unfamiliar sounds and smells that hinted at something darker lurking beneath the surface. Oliver and Liam couldn't help but wonder what kind of adventure they had gotten themselves into. They knew that this was just the beginning of a thrilling and life-changing journey. Liam continued to explore their new surroundings, eager to soak up all the new experiences. As they walked along the bustling street, they were approached by a friendly-looking man who offered to help them with directions. At first, they were grateful for the assistance. But as the man spoke, they couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. There was something in his eyes that made them wonder if he had an ulterior motive. After the man left, Oliver and Liam decided to investigate. They began to ask locals about the man and discovered that he was known to be involved with a group of people who were suspected of illegal activities. The cousins continued to explore the area, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. They noticed strange symbols etched into the walls of buildings and saw people acting suspiciously in alleyways. As they dug deeper, they uncovered a web of secrets that hinted at a larger conspiracy. They began to piece together clues and realized that there was something sinister happening in this new country. But as they delved deeper into the mystery, they realized that they were in over their heads. They had stumbled upon something that was much bigger than they could handle alone. With a growing sense of unease, Oliver and Liam knew that they needed to tread carefully. They couldn't trust anyone, not even the locals who had seemed so friendly at first. As they retreated back to their apartment, they knew that they were in for a wild ride. The adventure they had signed up for was turning out to be much more dangerous and suspenseful than they could have ever imagined. Oliver and Liam raced through the crowded market, their hearts pounding in their chests. They could hear their pursuers closing in, their footsteps growing louder with each passing moment. As they ducked into a narrow alleyway, Liam turned to Oliver, his face white with fear. "We have to keep moving," he said. "We can't let them catch us." Oliver nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. They could try to hide in the maze of alleyways, or they could make a break for it and try to lose their pursuers in the crowd. But before they could decide, they heard a shout from behind them. Turning around, they saw a group of men closing in, their faces twisted with anger. "Get them!" one of the men shouted, brandishing a knife. Oliver and Liam took off running, their legs pumping as they weaved through the throngs of people. But the men were gaining on them, their steps sure and steady. Just as they were about to be caught, a figure stepped out from the shadows and grabbed Oliver's arm. "This way," the figure hissed, pulling him down a side alley. Liam followed close behind, his heart hammering in his chest. As they ran, Oliver turned to the figure and asked, "Who are you?" The figure hesitated for a moment before replying, "My name is Maria." You're in danger. You need to trust me if you want to survive. Oliver and Liam exchanged a wary glance but knew they had little choice. They continued to follow Maria, weaving in and out of the maze of alleyways until they finally arrived at a hidden safe house. As they caught their breath, Maria explained to them that the men who were chasing them were part of a larger criminal organization with ties to the government. They were after Oliver and Liam because they had stumbled upon evidence of the organization's illegal activities. "We need to get out of here," Liam said, his voice shaking with fear. Maria nodded. "I have a plan," she said. "But we need to act quickly. The longer we stay here, the more danger we're in." Oliver and Liam looked at each other, their hearts pounding with adrenaline. They knew that their adventure abroad had taken an unexpected and dangerous turn. But they were determined to see it through to the end. Oliver, Liam, and Maria sat huddled around a small table in the safe house, their faces illuminated by the flickering candlelight. They had managed to evade their pursuers for now, but they knew that they were still in danger. "We need to get out of the country," Maria said, her eyes darting nervously around the room. "The longer we stay here, the more likely it is that they'll find us." Oliver and Liam exchanged a worried glance. They had never thought that their study abroad program would lead them to become fugitives, but they knew that Maria was right. They needed to leave the country if they wanted to stay alive. "But how do we do that?" Liam asked. "We don't have passports, and we can't exactly go to the airport." Maria leaned in closer. "I have a contact who can help us," she said. "But we need to be careful. We can't let anyone know what we're up to." The plan was risky, but they had no other options. They would need to sneak out of the city and make their way to a remote village on the outskirts of the country. From there, they would meet up with Maria's contact, who would help them secure new identities and passports. The next morning, they set out on foot, their hearts pounding with every step. They stayed off the main roads, keeping to the shadows and avoiding the watchful eyes of the authorities. As they made their way through the countryside, they encountered new dangers at every turn. They had to cross treacherous rivers and climb steep cliffs, always mindful of the danger that lurked around them. But despite the obstacles, they pressed on. They knew that their lives depended on it. Finally, after several days of travel, they arrived at the remote village where they were supposed to meet Maria's contact. As they waited nervously, a shadowy figure approached them. "Are you the ones who need help?" the figure asked in a low voice. Oliver and Liam nodded, their hearts pounding in their chests. "Follow me," the figure said, leading them down a hidden path. As they followed the figure deeper into the woods, Oliver and Liam couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. They had come so far, but they knew that their journey was far from over. Oliver, Liam, and Maria followed the shadowy figure deep into the woods, their hearts pounding with anticipation. They had come so far, but they knew that their journey was far from over. Finally, they arrived at a small cabin, surrounded by thick trees and overgrown bushes. The figure turned to them and said, "Wait here. I'll go get your passports." Oliver and Liam exchanged a nervous glance as the figure disappeared into the cabin. They were so close to finally leaving the country and starting a new life, but something didn't feel right. As they waited, they heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Maria tensed up and whispered, "Get ready. It might not be safe." Just then, the cabin door swung open and a group of armed men poured out, their faces twisted with anger. "You thought you could just run away?" one of the men sneered. "You should have known better than to cross us." Oliver, Liam, and Maria backed away, their hearts pounding with fear. They had been betrayed, and there was nowhere left to run. As the men closed in, Maria suddenly lunged forward, grabbing a nearby stick and swinging it at the men. Oliver and Liam followed her lead, fighting with all their might. But they were outnumbered and outmatched. The men quickly overpowered them, tying them up and dragging them back to the city. They were thrown into a dark, damp cell with no idea of what was to come. They had come so close to freedom, but now they were back where they started, trapped in a nightmare. As they huddled together in the cell, Oliver and Liam couldn't help but wonder what their future held. Had their adventure abroad been a mistake? Were they doomed to spend the rest of their lives in a foreign prison? But they refused to give up hope. They had come so far, and they weren't about to give up now. They would find a way to escape, to fight back against their captors, and to finally start a new life. They just needed to hold on a little longer. Oliver, Liam, and Maria spent several months in the foreign prison, enduring grueling conditions and constant threats from their captors. But they refused to give up hope, and they worked tirelessly to devise an escape plan. One night, they put their plan into action, slipping out of their cell and sneaking through the prison's winding corridors. They fought their way past guards and overcame numerous obstacles until they finally reached the outside world. As they breathed in the fresh air and felt the sun on their faces, they knew that they had a second chance at life. They managed to make their way to the nearest embassy and were eventually granted safe passage back to their home country. Though their adventure abroad had been fraught with danger and betrayal, they had come out the other side stronger and more resilient. They knew that they would never forget the lessons they had learned, and that they would always cherish the bonds they had formed during their journey. Years later, Oliver, Liam, and Maria would look back on their study abroad program as the catalyst that had changed their lives forever. It had been a harrowing experience, but it had also been an unforgettable one, and they knew that they would always treasure the memories and the friendships they had made.